So I'm going to do today's video a little differently. I'm not really discussing just one thing, but something that I've seen multiple different creators discussing recently. And that is having to do with AI and tech within photography. Now, I myself have taken advantage of AI within photography when it comes to things like helping with culling images, with helping with a little bit of the editing part of it. Anything that helps kind of speed up the workflow. But the one thing that I see a lot of people discuss and has become kind of a hot topic here lately is using things like generative AI backgrounds. Now, I always say to each their own, you as a photographer, it's up to you how you want to do things. But it started coming to a point that you have photographers completely changing out backgrounds into something that wasn't even there. Putting a couple up against a background of mountains when you've been sitting out in an empty field. When photographers first started doing this, it really wasn't anything that was noticed or discussed much. But now AI has infiltrated society so much that actual photos themselves are being questioned if they are AI or not. The types of photos I'm talking about are when you're shooting with like an f.2, f.4 lens, you're completely blurring out the background, which that has always been something that a lot of photographers have done. But now you have a lot of people wondering if it's AI'd because of how perfect that background looks or how blurred out that background looks. If you go into something like ChatGPT or any of the AI engines and have it produce an image for you, generally it's going to create a photo that has that really blurred out bokeh background. Because those AI engines learned off of professional photos and learned from photos taken by photographers who were using open wide apertures to get that blurred out bokeh background. So now you have photographers who their portraits are all those kind of blurred out bokeh backgrounds. It's kind of their signature. And you have people questioning if those are AI'd photos because the AI'd photos were learning from those types of photos. So the problem I think that we're starting to run into in the photography community, especially in the professional photography community, is you have a pretty large group of photographers who have a certain style that is now very much being replicated by AI. What this is doing is causing a shift that we've seen for a while now, and it's really starting to grow. You have a lot of clients who don't want that perfect look to it, that perfect background, that perfect smooth skin, that perfect lighting. I see a lot of wedding clients now who want those more authentic, more, you could say, imperfect photos. They want those more candid ones. They almost want photos that look like they were taken in the 80s and 90s when we didn't have digital cameras and you weren't able to preview photos or retake photos or do anything like that. Another thing that I have noticed becoming what I think is a bit of a problem is laziness within the photography community. Now, I don't want to say that everybody's getting lazy, but the technology has made it so easy to create photos that look like they were done perfectly. Now, what I mean by that is the editing software and the ability to use AI technology to perfect a photo has made it so that people could take an imperfect photo, maybe a photo that wasn't quite in focus correctly, keystones were completely wrong, different things like that, and they're able to completely correct it. Now, what that's doing is causing a lot of photographers, especially newer ones, not focus on perfecting their craft. It's becoming a common thing for people to say, I'll just fix it in post. Now, of course, when we were shooting on film, that really wasn't an option. It's not that photos taken on film weren't edited. They were. Even in the early days of film, you could dodge and burn a photo by the way that you were developing it. Now, don't ask me exactly how they did it because I'm not sure. It wasn't anything I ever did. That was way before my time. But I know that they could lighten and darken certain parts of photos. They would even go as far as adding color by hand to black and white photos. I just feel that it's come to a point that editing has come so far in the technology that anybody could really pick up a camera, snap a photo, have AI correct it for them. And I just feel like that's taking so much away from the art of photography. It's also causing an issue in professional photography because you have people that will pick up a camera and decide that now they're a portrait photographer. All of their images are being edited within AI. Does that really matter much though? If the client is still getting a great photo that they love, then what is a photographer who doesn't rely on AI technology supposed to do to compete against that? So that brings me to another one that I'd heard discussed when they were talking about this. And this is when it comes to your client relations. People a lot of times hire photographers, especially wedding photographers, because of the way that they vibe with them, how easy they are to work with, their personality, different things like that. I'm sure you've seen a lot of different photographers out there who just have these bigger than life personalities. And people like working with people like that. They like working with somebody who makes it easygoing, makes it nice and smooth. So as a professional photographer, that's how it is you need to set yourself apart from these other ones that are using generative AI. You need to be building that brand. You need to be building the relationships with the customers. But the other shift I see is that imperfect photos. If you don't quite know what I mean, look up any photos from the 90s, the early 2000s. You know, the photos that you would see almost in like your old family photo albums. Now, a lot of people would think that, well, that's easy. I'll just try to suck at photography. Believe it or not, it's actually harder to make photos that have that candid, almost imperfect look to it than taking photos that are almost perfected. It's really hard to describe until you focus on doing it. But you could talk to many different, especially in wedding photography, with this whole new trend of that, getting those more candid, like I said, 90s film look to them. It's more difficult than you think it is. But it's something that I've seen a huge shift in because so many people are wanting to push away from AI. They don't want their stuff looking perfect. They don't want it looking like a computer generated it. Now, another part of tech that I really think is affecting the professional photography community is the advancements in autofocus. Now, I know that sounds crazy to want to kind of bash on how far autofocus has come. But it's hit this point that, as I'd said previously, almost anybody can pick up a camera and create halfway decent images. And then with those advancements in the AI, are able to then refine that image into something that looks a lot more professional. With that advancement in the AI autofocus systems, the autofocus almost never misses. Now, that's the key part. It almost never misses. This is where it will set apart a seasoned professional photographer from somebody who just picked up a camera 6 months ago. Someone that's not super familiar with an autofocus on a camera or how to go into manual focus is going to have severe issues when that autofocus does not want to work correctly. Any of us that have been shooting long enough know that in certain lighting conditions, autofocus doesn't want to work. Autofocus usually relies on phase detection points and contrast. So it needs those lights and shadows to be able to detect the subjects, the face, the eye, whatever it is that it's locking onto. So someone who's not super familiar with autofocus systems or what to do when it doesn't want to lock on are going to have an extremely difficult time. So when you have these newer wedding photographers who just seem to be coming up out of nowhere and jumping in, it's not going to take them long to completely destroy a wedding that's in a bad lighting situation because their autofocus system wasn't working correctly. They're missing focus all over the place, and they weren't quick enough or knew what they needed to do to get the photos. Any seasoned photographer knows in a really difficult situation, switch it over to zone focus. If you have to, switch into manual focus. Almost all newer cameras, especially your mirrorless cameras, have focus peaking that can assist you. Even if you don't have focus peaking, you should know how to be able to look through the viewfinder of your camera and use manual focus. I myself shoot film at weddings as well as digital, so I'm constantly using manual focus lenses, so it's something I'm extremely familiar with. So if you're out there as a professional photographer, wedding, portrait, anything that has to do with moving subjects really, make sure that you know how to use your camera through and through. Don't completely 100% rely on face and eye detection autofocus. A lot of times, and especially in wedding situation, event situations, when you have so much going on or so many people moving around, you need to know what to do when that autofocus isn't detecting the correct subject, or when it just doesn't want to lock onto anything because the lights are so dim. Usually for me, with my Fujis, that's when I will switch over to using a zone autofocus, or I'll use the touch screen, use it that way, or I'll just override it and use manual focus. A lot of times on manual focus, I can be faster than the autofocus system, which should be a joke in itself right there on Fuji's autofocus system. Fuji autofocus is not the best in the world. I myself have never had a huge issue with it. There have been times where it doesn't want to work correctly. The phase and contrast definitely doesn't want to catch, but I can quickly override it with the manual. And it's something that I've been used to doing for a long time anyways, so it doesn't affect me too much. But yeah, I think that is something right there that is going to really hinder a lot of photographers that are new coming into it, is they are just so reliant on this technology. And anybody watching this who has been a professional for a while or who is trying to get into it, please focus on making sure you know how to use your camera correctly. Make sure you are composing those shots correctly. Don't ever rely on the edit. Don't rely on the post. The technology is great and there's some amazing things that you can do with it. But at the same time, society is making such a shift away from it. They don't want to see those types of photos. If people know that anything in there's been AI'd, it almost blacklists you. And something that I think a lot of people don't know is that when you put an image through, say, ChatGPT and have it alter something, there is a tag that is embedded in that photo that shows that it's been generated by AI. Now, with that said, something I would love to see sites like Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you're posting photos start implementing is automatically tagging photos that have that embedded information saying that it is an AI generated photo. Now, most of us can look at a photo and we can see the imperfections. We can see where it is that AI messed up at. But there's a lot of people that can't. I see a bunch of sites on Instagram that post these obviously AI generated portraits and passing them off as completely real. So yeah, that's kind of my rant on it. I think AI can be a great tool. I think it can be very useful in helping speed up some of our processes. But letting it completely alter images or relying on it the way that some people are, I think is one of the quickest ways to your failure.